welcome to Web of Stories. My name is Melinda and I am here with my weekly wrap up. I feel like I'm a little low in the camera. So first of all, t-shirt check. My book trovert shirt, and it says book trovert, a person who prefers the company of fictional characters to real people, and ain't that the truth? And I'm crooked and I'm too high and I'm sorry, let me adjust that. So this probably is not going to be a long update because I just had my mid-month book bash vlog and I haven't finished anything between then and now. So I will recap what I read because I know vlogs aren't everyone's favorite thing to watch. So this will be a more succinct discussion of what I finished this week. But before we get into that, I have a little bit of a channel update. This will be the last weekly update that comes out on a Saturday. Starting on not this coming Monday, but the following Monday. So Monday, the 29th of September, I'm going to start doing my weekly updates. They'll come out on Mondays instead of Saturdays. I have a couple reasons for doing this. One is if I do it on Monday, it gives me a little more freedom about when I actually film them. I can film them on Saturday or Sunday. Whereas right now I really just can film them on Fridays. So it gives me a little more freedom. I also have been I need to be stricter with myself about this. And it's not a YouTube issue, it's a internet issue, but I am trying to limit my time on the internet on weekends. So having a video come out on a day that I'm trying not to be on the internet very much is social media is really what it is. It's kind of self-defeating. So if I move it to Monday, then it's not during the weekend. And also, if you watch my channel, you know how many times I say this. Well, I read this book and my book club is discussing it tomorrow. So I'm giving you my thoughts on some of these book club books before I actually kind of have fully formed my thoughts because I still have my book club to go. And so this will give me a chance to talk about the books after my book club has discussed them in most cases, if that makes any sense. So this week is normal. So on Monday, the 29th will be, which means now I have to do math. There will not be a weekly update starting on the 27th of September. That will be the first Saturday without a weekly update. After that, it's going to be on Mondays, which means I probably will not have videos out on weekends at all, probably. Just because this also will I'm hoping this will give me a little bit a better chance to catch up on comments because I'm so far behind. But anyhow, and it's just kind of a weird thing in my mind. I don't know, that might not come to fruition, but we will see. Anyhow, I finished 3 books since my last update. And as I said, I discussed them all in my mid-month book bash vlog, but I will discuss them again here. The first one I finished is for one of my book clubs, but not one that has a discussion. It's for my postal book group. It's also a shorty. All of my books were shorties this week. And that's 3 Days in June by Anne Tyler. So this is the first Anne Tyler book I have ever read. I have a couple on my shelves, so I'm glad that this one was very successful for me. But it takes place in, I know this is gonna blow your mind, it takes place 3 days in June over the main character's daughter's wedding. And it tells the story of this main character. So it's the day before the wedding, the day of the wedding, the day after the wedding. And the setup is, the woman has long been divorced from her daughter's father, but the daughter's father is coming to the wedding. And he was going to stay with the daughter, which is a little bit weird, but he brings a cat with him. And because the future husband is allergic to cats, he can't stay in his daughter's house. So he ends up staying with his ex-wife. From there, it's just sort of kind of a look back at their lives together and what happened. And there's a cat. I like the cat. I'm all for stories that have cats in them. Like good things happen to the cat. Nothing bad happens to the cat. The cat ends up, spoiler, being a foster fail. But anyway, really enjoyed this. Very accessible, heartwarming, but still very honest. I will definitely be reading more Anne Tyler because Anne Tyler I liked her. I like this quite a bit. I can't remember which 2 books of hers I have up on my shelf, but I'll probably be reading them soon. The second book I have was not as successful for me, but I have been told in the comments that I need to kind of give this series another try, and that is Whose Body by Dorothy L. Sayers. So as you know, I'm an Agatha Christie girly. I've been reading through Agatha Christie's books, and I have a ways to go. I mean, if I read one a month, I probably will finish in 2027. It's kind of where I am right now. I know I have enough books to get me through 2026, but that gets me close to the end. And so what am I going to read after that? And I do really like Golden Age mysteries, and the other big name, the first big name other than Agatha Christie that tends to come to people's mind is Dorothy L. Sayers. So I thought, since I have all of the Lord Peter Wimsey books on my Kobo because I bought them, I don't know why. I have this very bad habit that I think I've broken. Of when someone tells me that they like a series, I buy the entire series instead of just the first book to see if I like it. Anyway, I did that with Lord Peter Wimsey, so I have them all. But Whose Body is the first Lord Peter Wimsey, and I had a lot of trouble with it. I ended up listening to it as I read it. I actually started over. Like, I started just reading it, and it was just, it's a lot of people sitting around and talking. And so I switched over to audio, and that helped because the whole dialogue thing's more dynamic that way than just reading it on the page. There's also a problem that Dorothy L. Sayers has, which I think is a bad habit. When you're writing pages and pages of dialogue, you start saying he said, she said, who said what, and then she drops that out. So pretty quickly lose track of who's saying what. And at least on the audio version that I was listening to, the narrator could vary his voice up enough that I could kind of keep track of different people saying things. So that helped quite a bit. The setup of this story is this guy comes home, goes into his bathroom to take a bath, and there's a dead naked man in his bathtub that he doesn't know, and where it goes from there. I found the whole mystery pretty overly convoluted for what it was. It's not as accessible as Agatha Christie. So my plan is, and I mentioned this in my vlog, my plan at this point is to, at some point in the near future, not right away, Whose Body is the first book, I'm going to skip ahead to Gaudy Night, which I think is the 9th book. But that is the book that's considered Dorothy L. Sayers' masterpiece. So I'm going to read that. And if I enjoy that, I may go back and backfill between the two and go. But as I said, people have told me that the series is worth it. So I don't know, is it just me, or was it Whose Body is just a rough start to it? We'll see. There's that. I did like his butler Bunter, which tends to be what people cite really liking about it. So yeah, that's good. It was a little over 200, actually, according to Goodreads. So I had an ebook, so I had to go by the Goodreads count. It was 145 pages. It felt much longer. This was 163 pages. And the third book I finished is, I did this as a buddy read with Mariandria, although I think she's still reading it. And this is Lois the Witch by Elizabeth Gaskell. A couple months ago, I read North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell, which apparently was my first Elizabeth Gaskell. I thought I had read something else by her, but I didn't. And I really enjoyed it. So I thought, well, let's read more Elizabeth Gaskell. So while I was going through Kobo, seeing if they had any of her books on sale, I came across this novella called Lois the Witch, which is a story she wrote set on the Salem witch trials, which sounded intriguing to me because she's a Victorian woman in England. And, she's not, everything I've read literature-wise about the Salem witch trials, as opposed to like history, literature-wise, has always been American literature. So I thought, ooh, it would be interesting to read an English literature take on it. And it was interesting. So I had let me start with my 2 complaints about this book. The first one is that Lois, our main character, if you couldn't tell from the title, is a dum-dum. She's sort of the Gothic Victorian equivalent of the ingenue in a horror movie who always does the stupidest thing. She's just like, why are you doing this, Lois? You are not making your life easier. So yes, there's that. The other complaint I had about it is that this is sort of like one of those praises and complaints. The praise, one of the praises I have this book is that Elizabeth Gaskell did understand the Salem witch trials very well, and she knew the history of the Salem witch trials. really well. You can tell that. I have read quite a bit of history on the Salem witch trial, so I'm very familiar with it. And she, you could tell that like she took what happened and kind of fictionalized it a little bit, so you can kind of take the actions in this book and kind of put them on what really happened, even though these are fictional characters. Although there are real characters who appear in this book, like Cotton Mather and Nathaniel Hawthorne's great-grandfather, who was the judge, Judge Hawthorne. He's in here too. But anyway, she did a really good job of that, except when it came to the Native Americans. And the language she used around describing the Native American, I guess, belief system was bizarre. It was almost fairy tale-ish, because there's witches, because witch trial, but wizards and sorcerers in terms that I have never heard anyone use in reference to Native American belief structures. They were words that are used in association with fairy tales. And it was just really bizarre. Plus, I think there was just some general 19th century outdated views towards Native Americans in it. So there's that. Probably, I think like the weird language would not have happened if an American had written this, but I think the same sort of might be considered racist now language toward Native Americans, or at least views towards them that were kind of built into this, would still be there, if that makes any sense. So it was of its time in that matter. The setup for this, and I am not going to go into the deep plot because anything is a spoiler. It's 106 pages, okay? Lois the Witch. Lois is a young woman who in England whose parents die. She's an only child. And because she is just not quite old enough to be on her own and be married, she is sent to live with her mother's brother, who is in Salem, Massachusetts. There'd been a falling out between the siblings over religion. So a letter is sent. The letter doesn't get there in time. Lois beats the letter there. And so they're like, oh, hi, who are you? So she goes and lives with this family. The uncle dies very quickly after. He's nice to her, but he dies pretty quickly after she arrives. So she's stuck with her aunt, her uncle's husband, who really doesn't want her there. The older son, or the son, there are some issues around that son, which I'm not going to go into because it's actually a really interesting thing about this book. The older daughter, who is the same age as Lois, so there's sort of a friendship there, but it's more of a frenemies thing, and the younger daughter, who's a brat. And it goes from there. Really interesting the way Elizabeth Gaskell really goes into the headspace of people, and she talks about why people made these accusations, and is not as straightforward. I mean, in modern history study of the Salem witch trials, there are some theories that she doesn't address because they weren't theories then, because they're modern. But she does go into a lot of the different issues, and she does it really well. She also goes into the psyche of what happens when you're accused of witchcraft, and the real battles that kind of go there. It's very fascinating. It is, as I said in my vlog, after reading North and South, if I had been given North and South and been given Lois the Witch and not told who wrote them, I would never think the same person wrote them. The tones are completely different. This is very gothic. I think there's a gothic reading event coming up in October. This would be great for it because it is so gothic. So there's that. It is denser. I think the language is denser than North and South. I ended up listening to it while I read it, not because the language was dense, but because I cheaped out, and I got the cheapest ebook version, and I looked at like the first page of it, and the words weren't making sense. Like, I was like, what? What's going on here? These words aren't, something's not going here. Like, they're words, and they're words I recognize, but they don't really make sense. So I thought, okay, I'm going to need the audiobook for this. So I downloaded the audiobook. And I realized within a minute that what happened was that I had a crappy ebook version that was full of typos. So listen, don't get the cheap ebooks of the public domain titles. Pay a little bit more to get a Penguin or an Oxford World's Classics or something like that. Something that's legit, because this was a mess. But yeah. So I really enjoyed it. It is definitely, I would say it's probably a bit of a harder read than North and South. I mean, yes, North and South is a fairly big book, and North and South was a serialized book. So, and I talked about this when I talked about North and South. It does feel like it's a bunch of serials put together, which means you have shorter sections that are a little bit more self-contained. And this is longer than a chapter of North and South. And it is self-contained, but she packs a lot more into it. So I do think it's a little denser. The audiobook that I got to listen to this is actually an audiobook of a Gothic Tales of Elizabeth Gaskell. I've only done Lois the Witch out of there, but in October, as you will see when my October TBR comes out, which I have filmed, I plan to read the rest of those for Victober/Gothtober/ spooky season. Because I just get them all at once. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. So that is what I read this week. If you want to know what I'm currently reading, look down below. I have my current reads down there. I am actually planning to go back to and finish Sunrise on the Reaping this weekend, because my family and I are going to the beach, so we will have car time. And if you haven't heard the stories, we started listening to that on our road trip and we didn't finish. And then my family didn't want me to listen to it without them, so it's been on hold. So I will get back to Sunrise on the Reaping and finish it on this trip. Yeah, so that's what's going on. Shorter update. My next weekly update will be the 29th, so on a Monday. We're going to start doing it then. And yeah, so we are almost to my favorite reading month. My favorite. I love October. Next week, I will have 2 videos going out. One is not book related, and one is my October TBR/Pile of Possibilities. I've already filmed both, so keep an eye out for those. Anyway, like, subscribe, join my Discord. If you want to play the emoji game, you certainly don't have to, but if you would like to, why don't you give me a witch for Lois the Witch? Whatever. You can do one of those. Anyway, thank you very much. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.